Sometimes the worst thing you can find is something your own blood tried to hide. I wasn't supposed to be there that night. Not in that house. Not past those doors. My brother's place sat quiet at the edge of Long Island. All glass and stone and silence. The kind of silence money buys so no one asks questions. I came for a routine check. That's what I told myself. A quick visit. 10 minutes, maybe 15. Make sure everything was running clean. Make sure no one was getting careless. Because in my world, careless gets people noticed. And noticed gets people buried. But something felt off the second I stepped inside. It wasn't loud. It never is. It was the air. Too still. Too wrong. The kind of wrong you don't hear. You feel it. Like a pressure behind your ribs. Like your instincts trying to speak before your mind catches up. I walked through the main hall, shoes quiet against polished marble, my reflection following me in every surface. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. No staff. No music. No movement. Just the hum of a house pretending to be empty. My brother, Victor, always liked control. Liked things exactly how he left them. But this wasn't control. This was absence. I checked my watch. 10:42 p.m. He should have been here. Lights were on. Security system active. Cars in the driveway. But no sign of him. I moved deeper inside. Past the living room. Past the bar. Past the office where deals were made without paper trails or witnesses. My hand brushed the back of a leather chair. Still warm. He'd been here. Recently. So where was he now? That's when I heard it. Soft. Almost nothing. A sound that didn't belong in a house like this. Metal. Light. Dragging. I stopped. Every instinct I had locked into place. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just listened. There it was again. Faint. Coming from below. The basement. Victor didn't use the basement. Said it was outdated. Said anything worth keeping belonged upstairs where people could see it. But this sound, this didn't belong anywhere. I turned slowly, eyes scanning the hallway until they landed on the door I'd never seen open. At the far end. Half hidden in shadow. My pulse didn't spike. It never does. That's the difference between fear and training. Fear makes you react. Training makes you wait. I walked toward it anyway. Each step measured. Controlled. The handle was cold when I touched it. Untouched. Unused. Or meant to feel that way. I opened it. Darkness. Stairs leading down into a space that swallowed light whole. The sound came again. Clearer now. Metal against concrete. Not loud. But enough. I stepped inside. Closed the door behind me. The house disappeared. Just like that. Replaced by something heavier. The air changed. Cooler. Thicker. Like the walls down there held secrets the rest of the house refused to acknowledge. I moved down one step at a time, my hand brushing the wall until I found the switch. I paused. Just for a second. Not because I was afraid. Because I knew. Whatever waited down there didn't belong to me. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. The sound stopped. Silence rushed in, heavy and expectant. Like the space itself was watching me. Waiting. I flipped the switch. Light flooded the basement in a harsh, unforgiving glare. And everything stopped. There are moments in life where time doesn't slow down. It disappears. This was one of them. A girl sat on the concrete floor. Still. Quiet. Like she'd learned that moving only made things worse. Dark skin. Shoulders tense. A chain resting beside her. Loose enough to move, but not enough to leave. She didn't look surprised to see me. That was the first thing that hit me. Not fear. Not relief. Just recognition. Like she'd already decided what I was before I even opened my mouth. Our eyes met. And something in my chest shifted. Not pity. Not anger. Something sharper. Something I didn't have a name for. I'd seen fear before. Built empires on it. But this wasn't fear. This was someone who had run out of it. Someone who had nothing left to give. Who did this to you? My voice didn't echo. It didn't need to. The room held it perfectly still. She didn't answer. Didn't look away. Just held my gaze like it was the only thing she still owned. I took a step closer. Slow. Careful. Not because I was unsure. Because I didn't want to break whatever fragile line existed between us. My hand reached into my pocket. Keys. Cold metal against my palm. Simple. Practical. The kind of solution I'd used 1,000 times before. Problems appear. I fix them. That's how power works. That's how I work. But before I could move any closer, before I could say anything else, I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me. Familiar. Calm. Unbothered. You weren't supposed to see this. I didn't turn right away. I didn't need to. I knew that voice. Victor. My brother. My blood. I closed my hand around the keys. Tight. Controlled. The girl's eyes flickered, just for a second, past me, toward him. And when they came back to mine, something changed. Not fear. Not hope. Something else. Something that made my next breath feel heavier than it should have been. Victor stepped into the light beside me, hands in his pockets like this was just another room. Just another conversation. She's business, he said. Casual. Easy. Like he was explaining a delayed shipment or a missed payment. I looked at him then. Really looked. And for the first time in a long time. I didn't recognize what I saw. Not because he had changed, but because I had never looked close enough before. My grip tightened around the keys. Power. Control. Solutions. All the things I'd built my life on suddenly felt different. He shrugged slightly. Don't make it complicated. Complicated. I turned back to her. She was still watching me. Still measuring. Still deciding. And then she spoke. Quiet. Steady. You're just another man with keys. The words didn't hit hard. They didn't need to. They settled. Deep. Somewhere I couldn't reach or ignore. And for the first time in my life, I didn't move. The room did not breathe. Neither did I. Her words stayed between us, quiet but heavier than anything Victor had said. Another man with keys. It should have meant nothing. I had heard worse. Done worse. Built a world where words like that did not matter because power erased them. But this time it did not move. It stayed. I loosened my grip slightly, the metal pressing into my palm, leaving a shape I would probably still feel hours later. Victor shifted beside me, casual as ever, like we were standing in his kitchen instead of a place that did not belong in any house we owned. You are overthinking it, he said, voice smooth, controlled. She is an asset. Temporary. Temporary. The word echoed wrong. I looked at him again, searching for something familiar, something that made sense. We grew up in the same house. Same rules. Same silence. But somewhere along the way, he had crossed a line I had never defined out loud. And now I was standing in front of it, realizing I knew exactly where it was. I stepped forward. Just one step. Close enough to see the small details I had missed at first. Her hands were steady. Not relaxed. Not calm. Controlled. Like she had learned to keep still because movement had a cost. Her eyes did not drop when I got closer. They did not soften either. They held, watching me the way people usually watch men like me, from a distance. But she was not at a distance. She was right there. And she still did not look away. What is your name? I asked. My voice came out quieter than I expected. Not softer. Just different. She hesitated. Not out of fear. Out of choice. Like even that answer belonged to her, and she was deciding if I deserved it. Nia, she said finally. Just that. No last name. No explanation. Just something simple and unbreakable. Nia. I repeated it once in my head, letting it settle. Victor exhaled behind me, a short, impatient sound. This is not necessary, he said. You are making it personal. I turned my head slightly, just enough for him to know I heard him. Not enough to give him my attention. Because for the first time since I walked into that house, my attention was not his to take. It was hers. Everything is personal, I said. The word surprised even me. I had spent years separating business from anything that could slow me down. Feelings were inefficient. Attachments were liabilities. But standing there, looking at her, that line did not exist anymore. Victor laughed under his breath, like I had made a joke he did not find funny. You always say that right before you make a mistake. Maybe. But this did not feel like a mistake. It felt like something I should have seen a long time ago. I crouched slightly, lowering myself just enough so I was not looking down at her anymore. Not towering. Not commanding. Just there. Equal eye level. Equal distance. The keys were still in my hand. I did not reach for the chain. Not yet. Because something told me that if I moved too fast, I would become exactly what she had already decided I was. Do you want me to open it? I asked. A simple question. But not simple at all. Because it was the first time in years I had asked anyone what they wanted instead of deciding it for them. She studied me. Not my suit. Not the space around me. Me. Measuring something I could not see. Seconds passed. Long enough for Victor to shift again, irritation building in the silence. She does not get to choose, he said. That is the point. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just resistance. Like a door inside me that had always stayed closed was starting to move. Nia's voice came again, quiet but clear. You are asking now. It was not a question. It was an observation. And she was right. I was asking now. Not before. Not when it mattered to someone else. Only now. I swallowed once, slow, controlled. Yes, I said. I am. Her eyes shifted briefly to the keys in my hand, then back to my face. Then do not rush, she said. The words landed differently than I expected. Not fear. Not hesitation. Something else. Control. She was taking control of the only thing left to her. Time. The room went still again. Even Victor stopped moving for a second, like he did not know what to do with that. I nodded once. Small. Respectful. Not something I did often. All right, I said. And I waited. I had not waited for anyone in a long time. In my world, waiting meant weakness. Meant someone else had power over you. But standing there, doing nothing, felt stronger than anything I had done that night. Because it was a choice. Victor stepped closer, his patience thinning. This is getting ridiculous, he said. You are acting like she matters. I stood up slowly, turning to face him fully this time. The distance between us felt different now. Not just physical. Something deeper. She does, I said. The words came out simple. Final. No explanation. No justification. Just truth. He stared at me, trying to read something he had always been able to read before. But whatever he was looking for, it was not there anymore. You are going to undo years of work over this? He asked. Years of work. Deals. Power. Control. Everything we had. Built together. I glanced back at Nia. She had not moved. Still watching. Still waiting. Still deciding. And in that moment, the answer became clear in a way nothing else ever had. No, I said. I am deciding what that work was worth. Silence stretched between us, thick and unspoken. Victor shook his head slightly, like he was watching something break that he could not fix. You are changing, he said. Maybe I was. Or maybe I was finally seeing what had always been there. I turned back to Nia, the keys still in my hand. This time, when I stepped closer, I did not hesitate. Not because I was sure, but because I knew hesitation would not protect either of us anymore. I knelt again, slower than before, giving her time to see every movement. No surprises. No force. Just presence. I am going to open it, I said quietly. Not a command. A promise. Her eyes stayed on mine. And for the first time since I had seen her, something shifted. Not trust. Not yet. But something close enough that I felt it. I reached forward, the metal cool against my fingers as I moved toward the lock. And just before the key touched it, she spoke again. If you open it, she said, everything changes. I paused. Not because I doubted her. Because I knew she was right. I looked at the lock. Then at her. Then at my brother standing behind me. And for the first time in my life, I understood that power was not in the key. It was in what came after I used it. The key did not move right away. Not because I could not. Because I understood what she meant. Everything changes. The words stayed in the space between us, heavier than the chain, heavier than the silence, heavier than the man standing behind me who had never once questioned anything we built together. I looked at the lock again. Simple. Metal. Ordinary. The kind of thing that should not have the power to divide a life into before and after. But it did. Because it was never about the lock. It was about what it represented. Control. Ownership. Lines crossed and never named. I exhaled slowly, steady, then turned my head just enough to meet Victor's eyes. He was watching me now with something sharper than irritation. Calculation. He was trying to understand if this was temporary or if something fundamental had shifted. Last chance, he said quietly. Not a threat. Not a warning. Just a statement. In our world, those were the most dangerous kind. I held his gaze for a moment. Long enough for him to see that whatever answer he expected was not coming. Then I turned back to her. Nia had not moved. Not even an inch. But something in her posture had changed. Not softer. Not weaker. More present. Like she had stepped into herself fully, knowing the outcome no longer belonged to anyone else. I lowered my hand. The key found the lock. Metal touched metal with a soft, final sound that echoed louder in my head than it did in the room. I did not rush. I did not force it. I turned it slowly, deliberately, letting her see every second of it. Letting her decide if she still wanted this to happen. The lock gave with a quiet click. No drama. No sound that matched the weight of what just happened. Just open. I did not pull the chain away immediately. I waited. Because this was no longer about what I could do. It was about what she chose to accept. It is open, I said. My voice stayed level, but something under it had changed. She looked down at the chain, then back at me. Measuring again. Always measuring. Seconds passed. Then, slowly, she moved. Not fast. Not desperate. Controlled. Like every movement had been practiced in silence long before I ever walked into that room. Her hand reached for the chain. Not to hold it. To move it aside. A small motion. But it said everything. She was not asking for help. She was taking it. I stepped back just enough to give her space. Not distance. Just room. She shifted her weight, testing something I could not see. Then she stood. It was not graceful. It was not easy. But it was steady. And that mattered more than anything else. When she was fully upright, she did not look at the door. She did not look at the stairs. She looked at me. And for the first time, there was something new in her eyes. Not trust. Not yet. But recognition. Like I had moved from one category in her mind to another. Still dangerous. Still unknown. But not the same. Behind me, Victor let out a slow breath. So that is it, he said. You just changed the rules because you feel like it. I did not turn around this time. I did not need to. The rules were already broken, I said. I am just deciding which ones matter. He was quiet for a second. Then I heard him move. One step closer. You think this ends here? He asked. You think you can walk her out and everything goes back to normal? Normal. The words sounded distant. Like something that never really existed in the first place. I glanced toward the stairs. Then back to Nia. She followed my movement, her eyes tracing the same path. Calculating. Always calculating. Nothing goes back, I said. That is the point. Silence again. Thicker this time. Not empty. Full of everything we were not saying. I reached into my jacket slowly, pulling out my phone. No sudden moves. No surprises. I typed a single message. Short. Clear. Sent it. Victor noticed. Of course he did. Who did you call? He asked. The people who clean up problems, I said. But not the way you think. His expression shifted, just slightly. Enough for me to know he understood. Not everything, but enough. I put the phone away and turned back to Nia. Can you walk? I asked. She held my gaze for a second, then nodded once. Yes. One word. Stronger than anything else she had said so far. I stepped toward the stairs, then stopped halfway, turning back to her. You go first, I said. Not a command. An offer. Control, returned. She studied me again, then moved. Each step measured, careful, but not hesitant. I stayed one step behind. Not leading. Not following. Just there. Present. Victor did not move. He stayed where he was, watching us like we were something unfamiliar. Something he had not planned for. When we reached the top of the stairs, the house felt different. The same walls. The same silence. But something had shifted. The air was lighter. Or maybe I was. Nia paused at the top, her eyes scanning the space, taking everything in like she was mapping an exit before she ever needed one. Smart. Necessary. I respected that. Where are we going? She asked. I looked at her. Really looked. Not at the situation. Not at the problem. At her. Somewhere safe, I said. The words came out simple. But they carried something I had never said before without calculation. She did not nod. Did not agree. She just held my gaze, then took one step forward into the hallway. And I realized something in that moment that I had never understood before. Power was not in owning the space. It was in choosing who felt safe inside it. Behind us, Victor's voice came one last time. You are going to regret this. I stopped, just for a second, then kept walking. Because for the first time, I was not thinking about regret. I was thinking about what came after. The hallway stretched in front of us like a place that had never been questioned before. Clean lines. Soft lighting. Expensive silence. But now every step sounded different. Not louder. Just noticed. Nia walked ahead of me, her pace steady but deliberate, like she was testing each inch of ground before trusting it. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. She moved like someone who understood that leaving one place did not mean arriving anywhere safe yet. I stayed a step behind her, close enough to react, far enough to give her space. That distance mattered now. Everything did. We passed the living room first. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over a perfectly still stretch of water, the kind of view people paid millions for. Tonight it looked like a mirror. Cold. Untouched. Nia's eyes flickered toward it for half a second, then away. Not curiosity. Assessment. She was not looking at beauty. She was looking for exits. Cameras. Reflections. She was mapping the room the same way I would. That told me more about her than anything else. "How many people are here?" she asked quietly. Her voice carried, but not far. "Just enough for me. Right now," I said, "just us." She did not respond. But I saw it. The smallest shift in her shoulders. Not relief. Not trust. Just recalibration. Fewer variables. Easier to predict. We kept moving. Past the bar. Past the long table where decisions had been made that never made it into records. I felt the weight of those spaces differently now. Not pride. Not ownership. Just awareness. What had been built here. What had been allowed. And what I had never questioned. The front door came into view. Tall. Black. Seamless. The kind that opened quietly no matter how heavy it was. Nia slowed. Not stopping. Just adjusting. Her eyes moved across the frame, then to the security panel beside it. Then to me. "Locked?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "For now." I stepped past her, reaching for the panel. My code worked instantly. It always did. Systems did not question you when you built them. The lock disengaged with a soft click. The same sound as before. But this time, it felt different. I opened the door. Night air slipped inside, cool and clean, carrying the faint scent of salt from the water beyond. It felt like stepping into a different world. Not safer, just open. Nia did not move right away. She stood just inside the threshold, looking out like the space beyond the door was something she had to negotiate with before stepping into it. I did not speak. I did not rush her. I had learned that much already. After a few seconds, she stepped forward. One foot, then the other. Outside. I followed, closing the door behind us. The sound echoed softly, final in a way I did not expect. The driveway stretched out under low lights, leading to the gate about 50 yards away. 2 cars sat parked near the front. Mine. And Victor's. The rest of the property stayed still. No movement. No guards visible. But that did not mean they were not there. It never did. Nia's eyes scanned the space the second we stepped out. Left. Right. Distance. Angles. She noticed everything. "Which one?" she asked. "This way," I said, nodding toward my car. I started walking. She followed, but not directly beside me. Slightly behind. Still keeping that line. Still deciding how much of me to trust with each step. Halfway down the driveway, she spoke again. "You said safe." I did not slow. I did. "What does that mean to you?" The question was not casual. It was precise. Directed. I stopped walking. Turned to face her fully. The distance between us was small now. But it still mattered. "It means no one touches you without your permission," I said. The words came out steady. Clear. She watched me, searching for something beneath them. "And if they try?" she asked. I held her gaze. "They will not get the chance." Silence settled again. But this time it felt different. Less sharp. Less guarded. Not open. Not yet. But shifting. She nodded once. Not agreement. Acknowledgement. Then she stepped forward, closing the distance by a fraction. That was enough. I turned back and continued toward the car. When we reached it, I opened the passenger door, but did not gesture. Did not instruct. Just made the option visible. She looked at the door, then at me, then back at the open space behind us. Calculating again. Always calculating. Finally, she moved. Sliding into the seat with the same controlled motion she had used for everything else. No wasted movement. No hesitation. Just choice. I closed the door gently, then walked around to the driver's side. The engine started with a quiet hum, smooth and immediate. I pulled out of the driveway slowly, the tires barely making a sound against the stone. As we approached the gate, it opened automatically. Systems recognizing me. Responding without question. I drove through without stopping. Once we were on the main road, the house disappeared behind us. Just another structure in the dark. Just another place that held things it was never meant to show. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. The road stretched ahead, empty at this hour, lit by long rows of streetlights that passed in steady rhythm. Nia sat facing forward, her posture straight, her hands resting still in her lap. But her eyes, they moved. Watching everything. Every turn. Every light. Every possible change. Finally, she spoke. "Where are we going?" I kept my eyes on the road. "Somewhere no one looks twice," I said. "Somewhere quiet." She was silent for a second. Then, and after that, I exhaled slowly. That question did not have a simple answer. Not anymore. "After that," I said, "we figure out what comes next." She turned her head slightly, looking at me now instead of the road. We, she repeated. I nodded once. If you want it to be. Another pause. Longer this time. Then she leaned back slightly, her gaze returning to the road ahead. Not agreeing. Not rejecting. Just considering. And for the first time since I found her, I realized something I had never needed to understand before. This was not about saving her. It was about whether she would choose to stay. The city did not notice us. That was the first thing I realized as we crossed. The bridge and the skyline rose in front of us like nothing had changed. Lights everywhere. Movement everywhere. Lives continuing without interruption. It was almost insulting. How something that felt so final inside that house could disappear so completely out here. Nia shifted slightly in her seat as we merged into traffic, her eyes tracking everything with quiet precision. Not nervous. Not overwhelmed. Just aware. Always aware. I adjusted the speed, keeping it smooth, predictable. No sudden turns. No unnecessary attention. The kind of driving that disappears into the flow. You are not going back? I said after a few minutes. Not a question. Not a command. Just a fact. She did not look at me. I figured, she replied. Her voice was steady. No hesitation. No attachment to what was behind us. That told me more than anything else could. Some people look back even when they know they should not. She did not. That meant whatever was in that house was not something she was leaving behind. It was something she had already survived. Do you have somewhere you want to go? I asked. The question felt strange. I was used to giving destinations, not offering them. She was quiet for a moment, watching a black SUV pass us on the left, her gaze following it until it disappeared into the stream of cars ahead. Somewhere no one knows me, she said. Somewhere no one asks questions I do not want to answer. I nodded once. I know a place. She glanced at me then. Not fully. Just enough to measure the weight of that statement. Of course you do, she said. There was something in her tone. Not sarcasm. Not disbelief. Just acknowledgement. Like she understood the kind of world I came from without needing it explained. We drove in silence for a while after that. Not uncomfortable. Just full. The kind of silence where thoughts move louder than words. I took an exit that led away from the main streets, deeper into a part of the city that did not advertise itself. Narrower roads. Older buildings. Places that did not show up on postcards but stayed exactly the same for years. Predictable. Quiet. I pulled up in front of a building that looked like it belonged to another time. Brick exterior. 3 stories. Windows with soft light behind them, but no movement visible from the street. No sign. No name. Just a door that blended into everything around it. I turned off the engine. The sudden quiet settled around us like a boundary. Nia did not reach for the handle. She looked at the building first. Then at me. This is safe? She asked. I met her gaze. No one here cares who you are, I said. And no one here talks about what they see. She held my eyes for a second longer, then nodded once. That was enough. We stepped out of the car, the night air cooler here, quieter. The city noise felt distant, like it belonged to somewhere else. I walked to the door and unlocked it, pushing it open without hesitation. Inside, the lighting was low, warm, intentional. A narrow hallway stretched forward, lined with doors that all looked the same. No decorations. No signs of ownership. Just space. Clean. Controlled. Stay close, I said quietly. Not because I thought she would get lost. Because I wanted her to know I was paying attention. She did not respond, but her footsteps aligned with mine as we moved down the hallway. At the end, I opened one of the doors and stepped aside, letting her enter first. Always first now. Always her choice. She paused at the threshold, scanning the room in a single, efficient glance. Small but complete. A bed. A chair. A table. A window with curtains drawn halfway. No clutter. No personal traces. Nothing that could be used. Nothing that could trap. She stepped inside slowly, her movements just as measured as before. I followed, closing the door behind us with a soft click. The room settled into silence. Nia moved to the center, turning once, taking in every angle, every shadow, every possible unknown. Then she stopped. You use places like this often? She asked. I leaned slightly against the wall, keeping my distance. When I need to disappear, I said. She looked at me then. Fully this time. And now, she asked. Are you disappearing? I held her gaze. No, I said. Now I am making sure you do not have to. The words stayed between us, heavier than I expected. She did not respond right away. Instead, She walked to the window, pulling the curtain back just enough to see outside. Not fully open, just enough. Always controlled, always aware. What happens if they come looking? She asked, her voice quieter now, but not afraid. Just practical. I pushed off the wall slightly, standing straighter. They will not find you here, I said. And if they try? I let the sentence hang for a second, not finishing it with force. Not with threat. Just certainty. She turned back toward me, studying my face like she was trying to decide if that certainty belonged to me, or to the world I controlled. You are used to being the one people fear, she said. It was not a question. I did not deny it. Yes. She nodded slowly, like she had expected that answer. Then she took a step closer. Not close enough to touch, just close enough to shift the space between us again. And now, she asked softly, what are you? The question landed differently than anything else she had said. Not because it challenged me, because I did not have an answer ready. I looked at her, really looked, at the steadiness in her posture, the quiet strength in her voice, the way she had walked out of that house without looking back. I do not know, I said honestly. The words felt unfamiliar, but true. She held my gaze for a long second. Then, slowly, she nodded. Not disappointment, not approval, just acceptance. Like uncertainty was something she understood better than certainty. She stepped back then, creating space again. Control returning to her side of the room. Good, she said quietly. Because I am not something you get to define either. I felt something shift again. Not tension, not resistance. Something closer to respect. I inclined my head slightly. Understood. The room fell quiet once more. But this time, it did not feel like silence. It felt like something beginning. The room did not change, but something inside it did. Not in the walls. Not in the light. In the space between us. It was no longer about distance or control. It was about presence. Real presence. The kind you cannot fake and cannot force. Nia moved away from the window slowly, her steps quiet against the floor, each one deliberate, like she was testing not just the room but the version of herself that existed inside it. Free. The word felt unfamiliar even in my own mind. I stayed where I was, near the wall, giving her the center without thinking about it. That was new too. I had spent years taking the center of every room I walked into, owning it before anyone else could. But now, I did not want it. I wanted her to have it. There are no cameras here, I said after a moment. Not to reassure her, to give her information. She nodded slightly, like she had already assumed that, but appreciated the confirmation anyway. And the door, she asked. Locks from the inside, I replied. Only you control it. Her eyes flickered toward the door, then back to me. A small shift again. Not trust, but something close to it. She walked past me without hesitation, stopping just short of the door, her hand hovering near the lock, but not touching it yet. She was thinking. Always thinking. If I lock it, she said quietly, you cannot come in. Correct. Even if you want to help. Yes. She absorbed that, her fingers finally brushing the lock, testing it without turning it. Good, she said softly. I did not respond. I understood what that meant. Boundaries. Not fear. Not rejection. Just control. Her control. She stepped away from the door again, moving back into the room, slower this time. Less scanning. More settling. Not fully. Not yet. But enough to notice. You should sit, I said after a moment. Not a command. A suggestion. She glanced at the chair, then at the bed, then back at me. I will stand, she said. Simple. Final. I nodded once. All right. Silence returned, but it did not feel heavy this time. It felt aware. Like both of us were adjusting to something neither of us had planned for. I reached into my jacket and placed my phone on the table, screen down, visible. Not hidden. Not held. Just there. No one is coming here without me knowing, I said. Again, not reassurance. Information. She noticed the phone. Of course she did. Her eyes lingered on it for a second longer than everything else in the room. Not because it was important. Because it was a connection. To outside. To control. To me. You are used to controlling everything, she said. Not accusing. Just stating. I exhaled slowly. Yes. And now, she asked. The same question. Different weight this time. I looked at the floor for half a second, then back at her. Now I am trying not to control. You. The words stayed in the air longer than I expected. She studied me, searching for something behind them. Trying, she repeated. I nodded. It is not something I have practiced. that earned the smallest reaction I had seen from her so far. Not a smile. Not softness. Just a shift at the corner of her eyes. Recognition. Honesty mattered to her. That much was clear. She moved toward the table, not touching the phone, but standing close enough to it to remind both of us it was there. What did you tell them? She asked. The people you messaged. I did not hesitate. That I found something that should not have been there, I said. And that I am handling it. Her gaze sharpened slightly. And they believed you? They do not question me, I replied. That truth sounded different now. Less like power. More like responsibility. She tilted her head slightly, considering that. That is dangerous, she said. I met her eyes. I know. Silence again. But this time it felt aligned. Like we were standing on the same understanding, even if we came from different sides of it. She stepped away from the table, moving closer to the center again. Your brother, she said. He will not let this go. Not fear. Just fact. I nodded. No, and you? She asked. Will you? I held her gaze. No. The word landed between us, solid and unmovable. She watched me for a long second, then looked away, her eyes drifting to the window again. Then this is not over, she said. It is just beginning. I followed her gaze to the curtain, the faint outline of the city lights beyond it barely visible through the fabric. Yes, I said quietly. It is. She turned back to me slowly, something steadier in her posture now. Not relaxed, but anchored. Then you need to understand something, she said. I waited. She stepped closer, not into my space, but closer than before. Enough to shift the air between us again. I did not survive by trusting people like you, she said. I survived by learning how to walk away. The words were not sharp. They were clear. Defined. I nodded once. Then you should keep that, I said. Do not lose it. That caught her off guard. Just slightly. Enough for me to see it. You are not asking me to. Stay, she said. I shook my head. No, why? The question came faster this time. More direct. I did not look away. Because if you stay, I said, it has to be your decision. The room held that answer in silence. She searched my face again, deeper this time, like she was trying to find the part of me that would contradict it. But there was nothing to find. Not this time. After a long moment, she stepped back. Not retreating. Just reclaiming her space. Good, she said quietly. Then she walked to the chair and sat down. Not because I told her to. Because she chose to. And that felt like the first real shift since we left that house. I stayed where I was, near the wall, watching without watching, present without pressing. The balance held. Fragile. New. Real. And for the first time in a long time, I did not feel the need to control what happened next. Time moved differently in that room. Not slower. Not faster. Just deliberate. Like every second had to be chosen instead of passing on its own. Nia sat in the chair now, her back straight, her hands resting lightly on her knees, not tense, not relaxed, just present. She was not trying to disappear into the room. She was occupying it. That was new. I stayed where I was, near the wall, watching without making it obvious, listening to the quiet rhythm of the space settling around us. No noise from the hallway. No movement beyond the door. Just the low hum of the city somewhere far outside, softened by distance, and walls built to keep things in or out. You are still standing like you are waiting for something, she said after a while, her voice cutting through the silence without breaking it. I glanced at her, then down at my own posture. She was right. I had not moved. Not really. I am used to anticipating problems, I said. She tilted her head slightly, studying me again. And am I a problem? The question was direct. Clean. No emotion attached. I shook my head. No. She held my gaze for a second longer, like she was measuring the truth in that answer. Then she leaned back slightly in the chair, just enough to shift her weight, just enough to show that she was no longer preparing to move at any second. Good, she said quietly. Because I am tired of being treated like one. The words did not come out sharp. They came out steady, and that made them land harder. I nodded once, acknowledging it without trying to soften it. Understood. Another stretch of silence followed, but this one felt different. Less guarded. Not safe yet, but possible. I pushed off the wall slowly and walked toward the table, stopping a few feet away from her. Not closing the distance fully. Not stepping into her space. Just adjusting my position so I was no longer something static in the corner. You should rest, I said. Not because she looked weak. because she had not stopped being alert since I found her. She let out a small breath, almost like a quiet laugh, but without humor. Rest, she repeated, like the word belonged to someone else. I do not remember how. I did not respond right away. There was nothing simple I could say to that, so I did not try. Instead, I reached into the drawer of the table and pulled out a small bottle of water, setting it down within her reach, but not handing it to her directly. Choice. Always choice. She looked at it, then at me, then back at it. After a second, she picked it up, twisting the cap slowly, her movements just as controlled as everything else she had done. She took a small sip. Not rushed. Not desperate. Just enough. Then she set it back down. Thank you, she said. The words were quiet. Careful. Like she was testing them too. I inclined my head slightly. You are welcome. That exchange, simple as it was, shifted something again. Not dramatic. Not obvious. But real. She leaned back in the chair a little more this time, her shoulders lowering by a fraction. Not relaxed, but no longer held at the same edge. What happens if I leave? She asked suddenly. I looked at her. The question did not surprise me. You can, I said. At any time. That is not what I asked, she replied. Her eyes locked onto mine, sharper now. What happens if I walk out that door and do not come back? I held her gaze. Did not look away. Did not soften it. Then I make sure no one follows you, I said. And after that, it is your life. She studied me again, longer this time. Searching. Always searching. You would just let me go? She asked. Yes. Even after everything? There was something under that question now. Not accusation. Something closer to disbelief. I nodded once. Yes. Silence filled the room again, but this time it felt heavier. Not tense. Just full of something neither of us had named yet. She looked away first, her eyes drifting toward the window again, but she did not move toward it. She stayed where she was. Most people do not mean that, she said quietly. I am not most people, I replied. That was not arrogance. It was fact. She let out a slow breath, her fingers tapping once against her knee, a small movement that broke the stillness just enough to show something was shifting inside her. No, she said. You are not. Another pause. Then she looked back at me. And that is exactly why I should not trust you. The words landed clean. Honest. I did not argue. I did not defend. Then do not, I said simply. That caught her off guard again. Just a fraction. But enough. You are not making this easy, she said. There was the faintest trace of something in her voice now. Not frustration. Not humor. Something in between. I shook my head slightly. It is not supposed to be easy. She watched me for a second longer, then leaned forward slightly, her elbows resting on her knees now, her posture shifting from guarded to engaged. Why did you come down there? She asked. The question changed the air immediately. Different direction. Different weight. I did not answer right away, because the truth was not something I had fully understood until now. I heard something that did not belong, I said slowly, and I chose to follow it. She held my gaze. You could have ignored it. Yes. You did not. No, silence again. But this time it felt like a thread connecting something instead of separating it. She leaned back again, her eyes narrowing slightly as she processed that. Then maybe you are not just another man with keys, she said quietly. The words were not an apology. They were not a retraction. They were a revision. I did not smile. I did not react outwardly. But something inside me shifted. Deep. Unavoidable. Maybe not, I said. And for the first time since this started, it felt like she might be willing to find out. The air in the room shifted again, but this time it was quieter, almost unnoticeable unless you were paying attention the way she did, the way I had started to. Nia did not look away after her last words. She held my gaze like she was waiting to see if I would fill the silence with something unnecessary, something controlling, something that would prove her right to keep her distance. I did not. I let the silence stay. Let it exist without trying to shape it. That alone felt like learning a new language. After a few seconds, she leaned back in the chair again, but this time it was different. Not just her posture. Her breathing. Slower. More even. Not relaxed. Not safe. But less on edge. So what now? She asked. The question sounded simple, but it carried weight. Not just about the next hour. About everything that came after. I glanced at the door, then back at her. Now you decide what you need, I said. And I make sure you have the option to get it. She tilted her head slightly, studying me again. You keep saying that, she said. Option. Choice. Like it is something you can just hand over. I nodded once. It is not something I can give, I said. It is something I can stop taking. That made her pause. Really pause. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion, but in thought. Most people never admit that, she said quietly. Most people do not see it, I replied. Another silence settled between us, but this one felt steadier, less fragile, like something had locked into place that neither of us could easily undo now. She shifted in the chair again, this time pulling one leg slightly closer, grounding herself in the space. Then let me ask you something, she said. I waited. If I had not said anything down there, if I had just taken the key and walked out, would you still be here right now? The question landed clean, direct. I did not look away. Yes, I said. She watched me closely. Why? I exhaled slowly, not because I needed time, but because the answer mattered. Because you did not walk out like someone who was free, I said. You walked out, like someone who was deciding what freedom meant. Her expression shifted, just slightly. Not softer, but less guarded. That is a dangerous answer, she said. Why? I asked. Because it means you were paying attention, she replied. And people like you do not pay attention unless it benefits them. I nodded. That is true, I said. Usually. She leaned forward again, her elbows resting on her knees, her focus sharpening. So what is the benefit now? She asked. There it was. The question that always came. The one I had built my entire life around answering before anyone else could ask it. But this time, the answer was not the same. There is no benefit, I said. Not the kind you are thinking of. She held my gaze, searching for the angle, the hidden motive, the piece I was not saying. Then why are you still here? She pressed. I did not hesitate. Because leaving would make me the same as everyone else who walked past something they knew was wrong, I said. The room went quiet again, but this time it felt heavier in a different way. Not tension, not uncertainty. Something closer to truth settling into place. She leaned back slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. You are not used to saying things like that, are you? She asked. I shook my head once. No, does it make you uncomfortable? Yes. That earned another small shift from her. Not quite a smile, but close enough to recognize. Good, she said. It should. I accepted that without argument. Because she was right. Comfort had never changed anything. It had only preserved it. She stood up then. Not suddenly. Not cautiously. Just stood. That alone told me more than anything else could. She was no longer sitting because she needed to. She was choosing to move. She walked slowly across the room, not toward the door, not toward the window, but toward the table, toward my phone. She stopped beside it, looking down at the device for a second before glancing up at me. This is how your world moves, right? She asked. Messages, calls, decisions made without anyone seeing them happen. Yes, I said. And you can change things with one message, she continued. Not a question, a statement. I nodded. Most things. She picked up the phone, turning it over in her hand without unlocking it, without trying to access anything, just feeling the weight of it. Then change something, she said. I watched her carefully. What do you want changed? She met my eyes again, steady, unflinching. Make sure no one else ends up where I was, she said. The words were simple, but they carried more weight than anything else she had asked. Not for herself, for something beyond her. That mattered. I did not look away. That is not a small request, I said. I know, she replied. That is why I am asking you. Silence followed, but this time it felt like a decision forming instead of waiting. I stepped closer to the table, closing some of the distance between us, but not all of it. If I do that, I said, there will be consequences. There already are, she said. No hesitation. No fear. Just truth. I nodded slowly. All right. I reached for the phone, but I did not take it from her hand. I waited. She looked at it, then at me, then placed it back on the table herself. Choice. Always choice. I picked it up then, unlocking it with a single motion. The screen lit up, bright in the dim room. Names. Numbers. Power, condensed into something that fit in my hand. I typed a message. Not long. Not complicated. But final. Then I stopped. My thumb hovered over the screen for a second. Not because I was unsure. Because I understood exactly what she had said earlier. Everything changes. I pressed send. The message left instantly. No hesitation. No delay. I set the phone back down slowly. The room felt different again. Not because anything visible had changed, but because something irreversible had just been set in motion. Nia watched me the entire time, her expression unreadable but focused. What did you do? She asked. I met her gaze. I made sure that what happened to you does not happen again in my world, I said. She held my eyes for a long second. Then she nodded once. Not approval. Not gratitude. Something deeper. Recognition. And in that moment, the line between us shifted again. Not just survivor and rescuer. Not just power and vulnerability. Something else. Something neither of us had a name for yet. But it was there. And it was not going anywhere. The message was already gone. No taking it back. No rewriting it. No explaining it later in a way that made it smaller than what it was. That was the thing about decisions in my world. They did not echo. They landed. Final. I did not look at the phone again after setting it down. I did not need to. I could already feel the shift moving outward, like a ripple I could not see but understood completely. Nia did not speak right away. She stood there, her eyes still on me, not questioning what I had done, not asking for proof, just watching, measuring the weight of a man who did not hesitate. That mattered to her. I could see it now. Not power. Not control. Certainty. They will respond, she said finally. Not a question. Yes, I replied. Soon. She nodded once, absorbing that, then turned slightly, her gaze drifting back to the window. This time, she pulled the curtain a little further. Not all the way. Just enough to let a thin line of city light slip into the room. It changed the space immediately. The shadows softened. The edges became clearer. Not safer, but more real. And when they do? She asked quietly. I stepped closer to the table, resting my hand lightly against its edge, grounding myself in something physical. Then I answer, I said. She glanced back at me. You always answer? I met her eyes. Yes. Even when you are wrong. The question landed sharper than the others. Not accusing. Testing. I did not look away. Especially then, I said. That earned another pause. Another moment where she recalibrated something in her mind. That is not how men like you usually work, she said. No, I agreed. It is not. Silence again. But this one felt aligned. Like we were no longer circling each other. We were standing in the same place, looking at the same thing, even if we understood it differently. A soft vibration broke the quiet. The phone. It did not ring. It did not light up loudly. Just a subtle shift against the table. But it was enough. Nia's eyes flicked to it instantly. Mine followed a second later. The screen lit up with a single name. No title. No explanation. Just a name that carried more weight than most people ever understood. I picked it up. Did not rush. Did not hesitate. Just answered. Yes, I said. No greeting. No pretense. A pause on the other end. Then a voice. Calm. Controlled. Familiar. That is a significant change, the voice said. I did not move. Did not glance at Nia. It is necessary, I replied. Another pause. Longer this time. Because of her, the voice asked. The room seemed to hold that question differently. Not louder. Just more present. I looked at Nia then. She was not trying to hear. Not leaning closer. She stood exactly where she was, her attention steady, her expression unreadable but aware. I turned slightly away, not to hide the conversation, but to keep it contained. Because of what was done, I said. The voice on the other end did not respond immediately. That alone told me enough. This was not a discussion they expected. This affects more than one operation, the voice said carefully. It affects everything, I corrected. Silence. Then, your brother will not accept this. I exhaled slowly. I am not asking him to. Another pause. Then a shift in tone. Subtle. But there. And if he resists? I looked at the wall for a second, then back at nothing in particular. Then he is no longer part of what I am building, I said. The words settled heavily, even to my own ears. Not because they were uncertain, because they were absolute. The voice on the other end went quiet again. Longer this time. Then, finally, understood. The call ended without goodbye. Without acknowledgement. Just done. I lowered the phone slowly, placing it back on the table in the same spot as before. The room felt different again. Not because of the conversation. Because of what it confirmed. Nia watched me the entire time. Not interrupting. Not reacting outwardly. Just observing. When the phone settled, she spoke. That was not a small conversation, she said. I shook my head slightly. No. She stepped closer to the table, her eyes flicking briefly to the phone, then back to me. You chose a side, she said. Not a question. I met her gaze. Yes. She studied me for a long second, then nodded once. And now they will choose theirs. Yes, I said again. No hesitation. No denial. Just truth. Silence followed. But this one felt charged. Not tense. Not unstable. Just full of what was coming next. She moved away from the table again, slower this time. Her steps less calculated, more grounded. She was no longer mapping the room. She was moving inside it. That mattered. You said this place is safe, she said, her voice quieter now. It is, I replied. For now. She stopped near the center again, turning slightly to face me fully. And when it is not, I held her gaze. Then we move, I said, before it becomes a problem. She considered that, then nodded slightly. You really do think ahead, she said. I have to, I replied. It is how I stay alive. She tilted her head slightly, something thoughtful in her expression now. And now, she asked, is that why you are doing this? I did not answer right away, because the truth had shifted. It was not just about survival anymore. Not just about control. Something else had entered the equation. Something I had not planned for. No, I said finally. Now I am doing this because I should have seen it sooner. The words stayed in the air, heavier than anything else I had said. She watched me closely, her eyes narrowing slightly, not in suspicion, but in recognition. That sounds like regret, she said. I nodded once. It is. Another silence. But this one felt different. Not guarded. Not distant. Something closer to understanding. She took one step closer. Not enough to close the distance completely, but enough to change it again. Good, she said quietly. Because regret means you are paying attention now. I held her gaze. I am. And for the first time since that basement, it felt like that might actually matter. The room held the weight of what had just been decided, but it did not collapse under it. That surprised me. In my world, decisions like that usually came with noise, movement, immediate consequences. But here, there was only quiet, controlled, measured, almost like the space itself respected what had been set in motion. Nia did not step back after speaking. She stayed where she was, close enough now that the distance between us felt intentional, not accidental. That mattered. Everything did now. Her eyes did not search mine the same way anymore. Not looking for a lie. Not looking for a crack. Just observing. Like she had accepted that whatever I was not hiding it. So what changes first? She asked. I exhaled slowly, letting the question settle before answering. The structure, I said. The way things are allowed to exist without being questioned. She tilted her head slightly. That sounds bigger than just one place, she said. It is, I replied. Then why start here? I met her gaze. Because this is where I finally saw it. Silence followed, but this one felt anchored. Not drifting. Not uncertain. Like we were standing on something solid for the first time. She nodded once, slow, thoughtful. Awareness is expensive, she said quietly. It costs you everything you were comfortable with. I almost smiled at that. Not outwardly. But internally, something recognized the truth in it immediately. I am starting to understand that, I said. She studied me for a moment longer, then turned slightly, her eyes drifting across the room again. But this time, she was not scanning for threats. She was taking it in, letting it exist without needing to control every angle of it. That shift was small, but it was real. You said they will respond soon, she said. Yes. How soon? I glanced at the phone on the table. Still quiet. Still waiting. Soon enough, I said. She nodded, accepting the uncertainty without pushing further. That told me something else about her. She did not need control over everything, just over what directly affected her. The rest, she could observe, adapt, survive. She moved toward the bed this time, not sitting immediately, just resting her hand lightly on the edge of it, testing the space the same way she had tested everything else. If this escalates, she said, her voice quieter now, you will not be able to keep me separate from it. Not fear, not doubt, just reality. I stepped closer, stopping a few feet away again. I know, I said. She looked at me then, fully. And you are still doing it, she said. I nodded once. Yes. Another pause. Then why? I did not answer immediately, because the answer had changed again. It was no longer just about what I had seen, or what I should have stopped. It was about what I could not ignore anymore. Because if I stop now, I said slowly, then everything I did before becomes acceptable. The words landed heavy. Final. She held my gaze, her expression shifting just slightly. Not softer, but deeper. And you cannot accept that? She said. No, I replied. Silence settled again, but this one felt shared, not divided. She sat down on the edge of the bed then, not out of exhaustion, out of choice. Her posture still straight, still controlled, but grounded in a way it had not been before. You are changing your entire system, she said, for something you only just saw. I shook my head slightly. No, I said, for something that was always there. She considered that, her fingers resting lightly against the fabric of the bed, tracing nothing in particular. That is worse, she said quietly, because it means you ignored it. I did not argue. Yes. She looked up at me again, searching for something. Not guilt, not justification, just truth. And when she found it, she nodded once. Good, she said, because that means you know what you are fixing. The room shifted again. Subtle, but real. Not tension, not pressure. Something closer to alignment. The phone vibrated again. Louder this time. More insistent. The screen lit up before I even reached for it. Multiple messages. Not just one. That was expected. Change does not move quietly in my world. It echoes. I picked up the phone, scanning the names quickly. Some neutral. Some questioning. Some already resisting. I did not open all of them. Not yet. Instead, I looked at Nia. She was watching me, her expression calm, steady, but aware of what that vibration meant. It started, she said. Yes. I turned the screen toward her slightly, not to show her everything, but enough for her to understand the scale. Messages stacking. Responses coming in faster than they could be processed. This is what pressure looks like, I said. She did not lean closer. Did not try to read them. She just looked at the screen, then back at me. And this is where most people step back, she said. Yes. Are you going to? The question landed clean. I locked the phone and set it back down. No. She held my gaze for a second longer, then nodded once. Then you are going to need more than control, she said. You are going to need discipline. I tilted my head slightly. Explain. She leaned forward slightly, her elbows resting on her knees again, her focus sharpening. Control is what you do when everything goes your way, she said. Discipline is what you hold on to when it does not. The words settled into the room. Differently than anything else she had said. Not because they were new. Because they were precise. I nodded slowly. Then I will need both, I said. She shook her head slightly. No, she said. You will need to know when to stop using one. That made me pause. Really pause. Because that was not something I had ever considered. In my world, control was constant. It did not turn off. It did not adjust. It dominated. But what she was saying was different. And you think I can do that? I asked. She met my eyes, steady, unflinching. I think you already started, she said. Silence followed. But this one felt complete. Not waiting for something else. Not building toward anything. Just there. And for the first time since this began, I realized something I had not expected. This was no longer just about what I changed out there. It was about what I was becoming in here. The room did not feel the same anymore, but it did not feel unstable either. It felt aware. Like every decision that had been made was still present, sitting quietly in the corners, waiting to see what would come next. Nia stayed seated on the edge of the bed, her posture steady, her gaze focused, but no longer guarded in the same way. She was not bracing for impact anymore. She was preparing for direction. That difference mattered. I stood near the table, my hand resting lightly against its surface, not for balance, but to stay grounded in something real while everything else shifted. The phone remained silent for a moment, but that silence was not empty. It was building. You are thinking, she said. Not a question. I glanced at her, then nodded once. Yes. She leaned back slightly, her eyes still on me. About what comes next. Again, not a question. I allowed a small breath to leave my chest. About what comes next, I confirmed. She studied me for a second longer, then shifted her position on the bed, turning slightly so she faced me more directly. Then say it, she said. Do not keep it in your head like it only belongs to you. That was not something anyone had ever said to me before. In my world, thoughts stayed internal until they were executed. Spoken plans created vulnerability. Silence created control. But now, that rule felt incomplete. I straightened slightly, considering her words before responding. There will be pushback, I said. Not just from him. From others. She nodded once, already expecting that. Because you disrupted something they were comfortable with, she said. Yes. And because they benefited from it, she added. I met her gaze. Yes. Silence followed, but it was not empty. It was analytical. She was not reacting. She was processing. That told me everything I needed to know about how she survived. She leaned forward slightly, her hands resting together now, her focus sharpening. So they will test you, she said. They will try to see if this is temporary. If you can be pushed back into what you were. I did not hesitate. They will. She nodded slowly. And if you are not prepared, they will succeed. The words were not dramatic. They were precise. I absorbed that without resistance. I am prepared, I said. She tilted her head slightly. No, she corrected. You are willing. That is not the same. That stopped me. Not because I disagreed. Because she was right. Willingness was not enough. Not in a system built on resistance. I exhaled slowly, letting that distinction settle. Then I will become prepared, I said. She watched me closely, searching for hesitation. There was none. After a second, she nodded once. Good. The phone vibrated again. Louder this time. More frequent. Not just messages now. Calls. Multiple. Overlapping. The system responding exactly the way I expected it to. Pressure. Noise. Demand. I reached for it, but I did not answer immediately. Instead, I looked at her. This is where it starts to get louder, I said. She did not flinch. Did not look away. Caused it. Silence. Then, that is not how the others will see it. I turned slightly, pacing one step, then stopping. Not restless. Controlled movement. That is not my concern, I said. The voice on the other end lowered slightly, shifting from challenge to calculation. And your brother? I did not hesitate. He made his position clear, I said. So have I. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, you are forcing a division. I looked at the floor for a second, then back up. No, I said. I am exposing one that was already there. The line went quiet. Then, finally, then you will need to hold it. I ended the call without responding. The phone went still in my hand. I placed it back on the table slowly, deliberately. The room felt different again. Not heavier. Sharper. Focused. Nia watched me for a long second, then stood up from the bed. Not quickly. Not cautiously. Just stood. That alone said everything. She walked a few steps closer, stopping just outside my immediate space. You did not raise your voice, she said. I shook my head slightly. There was no need. She nodded once. That is discipline, she said. The word landed differently now. Not abstract. Not theoretical. It. And that choice carried weight. Nia noticed. Of course she did. She did not look at the phone. She looked at me. You are letting it wait, she said. Not surprised. Just observing. I nodded once. Yes. She stepped a little closer, her posture steady, her presence no longer testing the space but existing within it. That is new, she added. It is necessary, I replied. This time. Not because it demanded it. Because I chose it. I picked it up, scanning the screen briefly before answering. Speak, I said. The voice on the other end was different again. Not calm. Not measured. Controlled, but strained beneath the surface. You are creating uncertainty, the voice said. I did not react to the tone. I am removing it, I replied. A pause. Away. Not because I did not know. Because the answer was not mine to define. That depends on what you choose next, I said. Building. Just there. She turned back toward the window, her hand resting lightly against the curtain, not moving it, just feeling the edge of it. You said earlier, she began slowly, that power is not in the key. I watched her, waiting. She glanced back at me over her shoulder. You were right, she said. It is not.